Okay. Good morning slash afternoon slash whatever.
Yeah, good morning.
Twig people. I apologize in advance for the lack of energy on my part. um, but we are all here, and good turnout actually, which is good. Half of us are zombies, but that's all right. Okay, so just to kind of start to go through the agenda. So the first thing is um, one of the more recent changes to these meetings was making it every 2 weeks instead of every week. And after some talks, I think you guys probably talked about this in person in Amsterdam, um, just to like not give people in Europe so much the short end of the stick of being like 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. We've decided to switch the calls by 12 hours every 2 weeks. So this is the first one of those that is kind of flipped, and then 2 weeks from now, it'll be flipped again. So we'll just kind of flip by 12 hours every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yay! So that's pretty much it. Next thing I have on the agenda is Amsterdam, because that happened. So I don't know who wants to fill us in on stuff. I can say that, just to kind of lead us off, I can say that last meeting 2 weeks ago, towards the end of our call, I pasted in, or no, I didn't. There weren't links, but I typed in like, here's my wish list of stuff that I want to get committed in Amsterdam.
hmm
And although one of them technically didn't get committed at Amsterdam, they're all committed now. So I'm just trying to get that up right now. So one of them was the single template for menus, the menu macro thing. That is in. One of them is making template the default option for hook theme. That just got in like
Yeah, a couple days ago.
a day or two ago, yeah. And Classy, of course. Classy got in, and I
Yeah,
watched.
Reese, we love you.
Yeah,
Is it like
I watched the little like kind of starting of the Q&A to for when he announced it. And then the other thing was the pagination markup updates that Lori had like worked so hard on. That got in as well. So
in
awesome, a lot of good stuff. And yeah, David, go ahead.
let's say in the primary secondary link stuff? I got in.
Yeah, menu blocks.
Yes.
Box.
Yay! I've only worked on that for 9 months.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, before they released beta, I kept watching the RTBC queue,
Yeah.
and because it was frozen, they were not committing anything. It was getting frustrating. But like half the RTBC queue was front end stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. For
It
sure.
was like theme.
Which was awesome to see.
Yeah, and a lot of that's in now.
Yeah.
we can also now attach JS and CSS to page, like, to attached with page
Mm-hmm.
variable. That's like crazy awesome because that was horrible.
Yeah. So in pre-process, since you can no longer really use Drupal add CSS, Drupal add JS, which most people don't know, but that was actually deprecated in Drupal 7. But I mean, yeah. Anyway, so in pre-process now you can do like variables hash attached and like add stuff onto there, and that will get rendered out for you. So, because before, like we had to remove a lot of those Drupal add JS add CSS calls, we had to like build out this render array and then Drupal render it in pre-process, which always felt yucky.
Yeah.
Mostly because you're then no other pre-process functions can then manipulate that. So that's pretty awesome. That was also very recently, like within a few days, I would say.
Yeah. Well, so I still haven't like unpacked this in my head, but apparently there was a whole discussion about the entire page rendering, like chain of stuff, and it's getting completely overhauled.
Yeah.
So, and this is that attach thing is part of that. So there was these things called HTML fragments, and those are going away, basically.
Okay.
Everything's a renderer right now. Yay!
For better or for worse.
Right. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't fully understand it yet, so.
David, I of course you started the phase 2 meta,
Yeah.
and all the issues for Banana, which is awesome. Thank you.
Phase 1's almost done.
Yeah.
I think we're down to like 4 or 5 issues
Awesome.
that are not.
There's five Banana Phase 1 issues left.
Okay.
Are any of them RTBC?
No, they're all needs review.
Okay.
And I guess like Page still needs a patch, right? Or
Yeah, Page is probably the most ignored one so far.
okay, that's fine.
There's no attributes in page.html.twig.
Yeah, that's why I keep talking about merging it with HTML.
Yeah.
Everything
So
that Page is doing is actually just dumping stuff into the HTML tag.
yes.
So they kind of have to be changed together.
Actually, there is the HTML, so there's 6. It's somewhere.
So, but I mean, comment will go in. Lori's working on views.
Yeah, I have to.
Lori, can you do the change that's in the links one? Because Alex had a comment on that. Because I can do it, but if I do it, then I can't review it.
The age-old problem.
Yeah, but if you do it, I'll review it and send it back to RTBC. He was just saying like change the name of some variable or something.
We have 2 Loris.
Oh my.
Yeah, my browser crashed.
That's right. And as
Yeah,
far as I
otherwise,
understand, like the main phase 2 blocker is actually switching the tests to use classy, which we have a patch that theoretically should do that, but that's causing a whole bunch of tests to fail. So that kind of needs some more troubleshooting. I just pasted in the issue link into the chat.
yeah, every time I look at that patch, it doesn't look properly formatted. Is the last one formatted?
So that changes the like the testing profile to include classy?
Yes.
Yeah, and use it as the default.
Why is it? I saw there was some explanation in IRC yesterday, but why is it to temporarily change the test? Wouldn't we need to permanently change the test?
Yeah, I was having that same argument.
So I think there's probably 2. There was actually a new little tidbit I saw in the issue summary of this one that might shed some new light on it, where it actually talks about basically adding test coverage for Stark. So I think the end goal is to basically have test coverage for both Stark or Core and Classy. However, like that's the fact is that most of the theme hooks are not tested. We do have an issue, which I'll try and find here, to add actually like comprehensive, kind of, and like nicer to maintain test coverage for all this stuff. But I think so in terms of like, yeah, temporarily, I think the idea, we were talking, Dave and I were talking to Alex Pott, and he basically said that the theme that the testing profile uses is not release blocking. So if it's using classy, like as long as we're testing all the functionality and stuff, because the fact is right now we don't really have all that test coverage, as I said. So
yeah. Well, I think like most times when there's a test, it's checking that some bit of markup is showing up, and like once we move everything over into Classy, that will be pretty impossible to test in Core because there'll be no classes or anything to look look for within an XPath. So there'll just be a div here and a div there and a div here. So
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, so not only would we have to, and the thing is, like, it's sort of like we've been talking about how there's almost like there's the phase that we're doing now where we're moving stuff, and then there's almost a phase after where we would argue about the markup basically.
yeah.
So that's kind of like we would have to update the tests twice.
Gotcha.
So at least this way, once we make this change, sort out all the test failures and stuff, then
Wait, why would we have to update the test twice?
because the markup's going to change twice.
Yeah.
The course like
That's why
start
we're so
markup.
on that. Yeah. Morton's dream markup thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Ruben's here. He made bail.
Hi, people. Hey,
Hey, Ruben.
Hello.
we are free.
It looks like you've just woken up, man. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
All right, so I get it.
Yeah.
So we'll set classy. We can then make all those phase 2 changes without worrying about test breaking.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can worry about it later.
Because the thing is, we already have to worry about sort of manually testing most or all of these anyway.
Mhm.
Or at least sort of manually like vetting them, sort of grepping or searching the code to make sure, that these classes aren't mission critical.
What should we do with the system module? Because there's like more than 20 templates in the module.
Yeah, I think we can break that.
Testing that manually seems to be a huge job.
Yeah, I would probably leave it for last, maybe, and then discuss breaking it up into smaller issues or at least smaller patches or something. I just dumped them all into one issue just so that I can get all the issues made. But yeah, there's too much work in there for one issue.
We could turn that into almost like a sub-meta.
Yeah.
We did that with the Twig conversions. Because there was a couple of them that we had tried to do as one big issue, but we couldn't get all the parts of it RTBC at the same time, and so we basically converted that into a sub meta whatever, and then it was done like way quicker. Like we actually got it all done that way. So
Yeah, that sounds a good idea.
Yeah.
so plus one of that.
And this might also be a good maybe learning tool for deciding how to split these up. And maybe that gives us some info on how to split up the classy directories. Because this is kind of the biggest problem when it comes to that. Like maybe we should just put all the form-related stuff together, or all the menu stuff together, or something like that.
Yeah, we should.
Within system, or just within classy.
No, I'm just saying we should break up that system issue because there's like 50 things in it.
Okay.
And how we decide to break it up might give us some insight into how we might want to break this up.
Oh, I see.
Classy directory structure.
Gotcha.
One thing we might want to do is take a look. I think it's maybe look at some of the contrib themes. I think like Omega maybe does this, where I think they have like almost all the templates in the theme, and they've broken it up into folders. So we might just see if there's some base themes that do this and how they organize it. That might give us some ideas. Create something that's familiar to people.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah, I almost want to do it not alphabetically, but you know what I mean, like because you're gonna have to know what template you're looking for first.
Yeah.
And then just make it so that it's obvious to figure out where that template would be without having to do some weird stuff like, oh, is it related to the footer or something? And,
Yeah.
like, if it's menu dash something, it's probably in the folder called menu.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is. 147 templates or whatever is too overwhelming. Yeah, system is not an intuitive place for people to look for stuff, but
No.
I don't know.
Yeah,
And
there's
some of the splits.
Just some way to have a more reasonable. Yeah, it can cause it can be a pain in the butt too if you have too many things in one directory. Like if you're working with heaven forbid you're working with FTP or something like that, or just over a network connection.
yeah.
It can sometimes be a real pain if you have a whole bunch of items in one particular folder. So some sort of balance would be nice.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think we do probably have to come up with some sort of logical grouping, but at the same time, whatever we come up with, people can always use Twig debug to find where stuff is. So I'm not too worried.
You do it by module.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of would lean towards something simple like that because it's like.
Although not entirely. All right, so like region has its own folder. They do have a folder for system.
Or are you looking at Omega?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of weird. Yeah. All right, we'll come up with something. I don't think it'll be too complicated.
Because like yeah, I guess like if we're thinking people will copy this, like copy the whole theme or something, then it's also like they can organize stuff how they want in the end.
Do people think that people actually do that? I know Morton kept saying that. I was questioning whether or not people would.
I'm sorry.
Like
with
move
people
stuff
would what?
around.
Like
Or
if you're going to
copy.
make your own theme, instead of using Classy as a base, you might just, because if you know you're going to change a lot of templates, you might just copy the whole thing.
I personally wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that either.
I think you'd only do that with things you. I mean, you could, but it's kind of wasteful if you're not going to actually make the changes.
Yeah, like if I'm going to change 4 templates, I'm not going to copy the whole thing.
Because like yeah, because it's in whether it's in core and contrib, but basically because it's in core, there could be a bug fix actually in one of those templates, and you wouldn't really get it if you'd already copied it, 6 months ago. That's sort of at least one, aspect of it.
Yeah, but I mean that would happen anyway if you just overrode a template.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is for all the templates you don't override. Because I mean, I would like to see the site that overrides every single template in core. Like I actually would.
I don't think anybody.
Oh, that was cool.
Sorry, just trying to switch from my phone to my computer.
Cool. We got like a crazy echo thing in there for a second.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid that. Sorry.
It's cool. Okay, so
if anybody has spare time, feel free to work on the couple phase 1 stuff that's left so we can get it all done.
yeah.
I'm trying to get them done, but most of them are on needs review status, and I can't review them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to talk anything else to mention from Amsterdam?
All
right.
I don't.
Maybe?
Well,
No?
while we're talking about Classy, talk about the CSS stuff.
Which part?
Maybe nobody wants. Well, just the. So the plan is then we're moving CSS if it's related to something, if it's in core.
Yeah.
So I read that instead of moving it to Classy, we're trying to move it to Bartik or 7 if it's only related to one of them.
Yeah, so I think it depends on what we have to really see what shows up. So there are things like if something's functional, and you would want it to still work in Stark, basically, it would stay in the core template. I think.
And then that's a good indication the class should stay in the core template too.
Yes. Yeah. But things that we find that probably have no reason to be there and are just like adding extra margin to H2s or something.
Right.
Right. Like that's probably some dumb thing that shouldn't be coming out of core, and we should remove it completely. But if Bartek was using it and like its spacing was being determined partly by that, I would suggest instead of putting it in Classy to put it in Bartek directly. Right. Because that's not some styling that we want Classy outputting. Because once you put it in Classy, you're forcing it on everybody, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this should be good because it forces us to think about the CSS and stuff that's in there because, you know, in my opinion, the less CSS coming out of it, the better. You know, that's stuff that's hard to override and things. Yeah. Also, it like helps make it easier to find classes that we can remove too.
Yeah. The one thing that we need to figure out are what things we consider style and what things we consider functional. I was going through some things to try to find examples, and so like here's a couple. Field labels are set as bold. Right? Is that something that should get stripped out completely, or would you want that to be there in Stark? Is that considered more than just style and almost somewhat functional to sort of separate the field labels?
I don't know. That feels like something that should be an explicit choice.
Yeah.
For somebody. I think the stuff that needs to stay is the like things where stuff doesn't work if you don't have it, like contextual links and toolbar are the two things that jump out at me the most. Like,
right. Well,
those don't work.
I have a feeling we'll end up with a blurry line.
Yeah.
On what is considered functional?
Yeah, that's.
All right. So here's another example I found. Note unpublished. When it sets that background color.
Yeah.
Should that stay? Is that a style choice, a display choice, or is that something functional? Because then if we remove it and you have Stark turned on, or you're just not using Classy, then you're not going to get anything. And you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But if you leave it, you have to override it if you don't want it.
Yeah, I don't know. And I've had it when that doesn't happen, and it is confusing. Like, it's very hard to distinguish between a published page and an unpublished page without that.
Yeah. In general, I mean, part of me would just wants to somehow avoid this entire topic in Phase 2 because I feel like it could really slow us down.
Well, the reason we can't avoid it is because those are dependent on those classes, and those are the things we're removing, right? So if we're saying we don't need the note unpublished, it's because we're taking that class out of core. And if we take it out of core, we have to remove that CSS too.
But yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, do we really need to? I mean, at least, I don't know, it's tough because like...
So you're saying if there's an argument about it, just leave it?
I guess so, yeah, because... Because like we can really go down a rabbit hole, I think, of trying to basically clean up all of the CSS and core, and that worries me because there's a lot of gremlins in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, like people would argue that we should be doing that.
I think maybe we just need to work through all the templates and then see which of these things seem debatable. And see how many there are. Are there 4 templates that have debatable things, 5 templates that have debatable things, which is reasonable for us to go through?
Yeah.
Are there 50 things that we'd have to bike shed?
Yeah.
You know? So
yeah,
those are good ones, though. Those are
yeah.
Those are definitely edge cases.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming there's a lot because otherwise, why are those classes there? I would think they were added because there's something attached to them. Even
Yeah.
if it's some dumb little CSS coming out of the field module that says, make the margin bottom this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a mixed bag because I think some of it is like, oh yeah, people will use these, and some of it is yeah, it's actually they were added for a reason.
So, all right, that's what I want to make sure we get phase 1 done, so then we can sit around and bike shed phase 2.
Luckily, we have a fairly good timeline on this, right? Because things don't have to be markup complete until RC, so
Mm-hmm.
we have time for this. But it'll make theme developers' lives easier the sooner we get this done. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think like I'm really happy with how fast phase 1 has progressed. So if we can do something similar for phase 2, or at least try to, like that would be awesome.
yeah, great work, everybody who's worked on phase 1.
I agree.
So does anybody, Scott? Do you know what the plan is for the betas? Like, what is there? Is it like the alphas where they release a new beta version at some arbitrary, like
I
every
think there is.
month, or?
I think it might be monthly.
Yeah, yeah. As far as I've heard, it's almost the same thing where it's a snapshot. But I think that the committers are probably going to be a bit more strategic now that we're in beta about what gets into a given beta, and just in general about what gets in for 8.0.x.
Yeah, I think beta 2 will actually be more important than beta 1. Because there's a bunch of stuff that didn't go in that technically should not go in, but they're going to get them in because they're like all the stuff done at Amsterdam and just after where people were waiting and they were RTBC and it didn't get into beta.
Yeah.
Like if somebody wanted to try to build a website, they're like, oh, well, beta's out. We can do it with beta 1. It's like, no, do it with beta 2.
Yeah, I mean, earlier they were saying beta 2 or beta 3. Like, they can put some minor BC breaking changes in beta 2 or beta 3, but they really want to have upgrade paths.
Yeah,
Probably
they've said they can. I think technically they can put anything in that breaks things, but it depends on how important it is and how much it breaks. It's like a pro con.
Yeah.
It's
And I
like if
think
you discover something really, really awesome and it breaks things, they're like, all right, we'll do it anyway.
yeah, for like critical stuff, yeah, then it's allowed. But I think so. I pasted an issue in the chat that just talks about kind of what can get in post beta, and then there's also another issue that talks about the beta to beta upgrade path, which doesn't really affect the theme layer, but it's more for database schemas and I guess config schemas and things like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of the database stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good thing about this is like no front end stuff pretty much is frozen.
Yeah. And I think like in the Q&A and things like that, like XJM and people said that, I think it's probably written out somewhere too that basically, if you're front end or a themer, like don't like think that it's kind of fully baked.
Nope, there's stuff to change everywhere.
Because we're still working on it. So I'd like to quickly skip down to the last item on the agenda, and then we can go to everyone's favorite topic, or least favorite topic, depending. So I talked to Alex Pott a little bit about this yesterday, the Twig registry loader.
Yeah.
So this is Mark. Mark kind of originally pitched this to me, and I've since definitely become pro Twig registry loader. The more recent patches have a nicer implementation where we're actually using the Twig loader chain. And I'm also thinking that we could make Twig registry loaders a tagged service so that if you're writing a module, you can basically add in your own Twig loader. So I'm sort of would like to connect with the guys who have done sort of a version of Contemplate in D8. But basically, like if you want to load templates from the database or something, that would be an example of another Twig loader that you could add in.
So just to back this up, Scott, the context for this is that the point of this is that
Yeah, let me get the issue too.
it helps to fix some inheritance issues, particularly when you're using Twig blocks.
Yeah.
If you're extending one template from another template so that you can have just the second template is just a small portion of the larger template, like that's all you're changing, then right now you have to point to a very specific template. But things get broken if you're then copying one or the other into your theme and making changes because
the path is moving?
yeah, because it'll point to the thing in core on either side rather than like following the registry so that it just works like normal. And
yeah,
that's the short version.
Yeah.
So.
And Alex also pointed out, I want to update the issue summary, or someone else can if you want to. But Bartik has its own block template now. So there's actually some templates, I think, in Bartik that are extending from the system block template rather than the Bartik block template, which is okay if we meant to, but if we didn't mean to, that kind of shows right there that that's sort of a reason why we need this.
Yeah, I think it's the system branding block that is the example.
Because I think one of them extends. There's a system branding block and a menu block.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which one extends which way.
Yeah, but it's something like that. So.
Yeah, the system branding block extends from the block module, whereas it should probably extend from Bartik's block template.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right?
Yep. That was the whole point of this. So, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing kind of left there is to figure out, I mean, the patch that I have on there works. And I don't know if maybe the sort of having the ability to add more loaders in contrib easily, maybe that's like scope creep. But at the same time, this feels like the easiest time to incorporate it because it's almost
Creating a registry service essentially, a loader registry service.
Yeah, because like before, what I did in the earlier patches, what I did was completely override the Twig loader, the Twig like file system loader, and I basically said, okay, do all the normal stuff and then check the registry. But that sort of functionality is already supported with the Twig loader chain, which we're already using in a way for the inline template stuff, because that uses the string loader. So this is just sort of leveraging it in a more formal way. And
so what do you need to do to get this in? Like, what's necessary to make this RTBC and have Alex give a stamp of approval?
I think basically the sort of the technical implementation needs to be agreed upon. I've been meaning to sort of talk to Daniel about this because he's kind of up on all the Symfony stuff, and he might have an idea of whether this is a good idea to have it as a tagged service or not, or if what I have is fine. Because with what I have, you can still override the whole thing. It's just you can't really add stuff easily, as far as I know. So anyway.
Yeah. So he might be the one to RTBC it, basically?
Yep. Yeah, he's been doing all the reviews and stuff so far.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically maybe today even I'll see if I can catch him on IRC.
Yeah, well, this would be great if we get it in. So.
Yeah, because I basically talked to Alex and I said, like, what do you think? Like, is this something that can get in now that beta's out? And he basically he didn't outright say it, but after our discussion, I think he's basically on board because of the Bartik thing.
Yes.
So it's all coming together, Mark.
All right. Yeah, this also has been hanging out there for what, 6 months, something like that.
Yeah, there was a decent window between when you sold me on it and when the issue got created, and then when the issue got created and the actual patch. Or actually, no. I think I
No,
guess,
the issue was made in June, but I think we were talking about it in March or April.
oh yeah, for sure. I think I actually posted the issue so I could post a patch though. Okay, that's cool.
All right, awesome. Great.
So yeah, that's probably kind of boring for people who, but hopefully that makes sense to you guys. It's basically making it work like, and Alex said it too, like this is how you would expect it to work. So for Drupal stuff, and then the only other thing I have on the agenda here is documentation. So I noticed that we have this crazy, looks pretty cool, that GitHub documentation from SQNDR.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh,
Oh, hi.
oh hey.
Hi.
So there was some discussion on some of the issues. I guess saying that this is great, but we should incorporate it into
Big echo.
yeah. Did anyone catch any of that? Okay, hold on one second.
Wait, somebody was muted and then unmuted. Whoever did that. There, was it
Okay, Sander, sorry, I just had to mute you. If you have headphones, great, or you can mute and unmute yourself when you're talking, just because when anyone else is talking, it's coming through your speakers as well and getting all garbled. So
GitHub documentation you were saying?
yeah, so let me see if I can find a link for that. I think it's probably on one of the links on the agenda here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So there's a couple issues on D.O and so like Jennifer Hodgson is like one of the documentation leads, or is the documentation lead. I'm not sure anymore. But basically,
the working group. Yeah,
so she's actually for doing something like on GitHub like this, but everyone else is not. So I think
it's fine being on GitHub if Squander worked on it that way, but we should definitely move to D.O.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's awesome that we have all this work. Like, thank you very much for doing this. And yeah, I think we just need to transfer this to D.O and kind of keep updating it there, and that would be awesome. Because that's like it gets us so much further than what we have now. Like what we have now in the D8 theming guide is mostly like little snippets here and there of like, here's how you do this, here's how you do this. But there's really nothing comprehensive like this. I really like even like the diagram of classy and core and stuff like that. Like that's awesome, and stuff like that I think is, I would love to see more of the stuff like that in the Drupal documentation in general.
This looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just created that diagram today, like 10
really?
minutes ago.
Oh,
So-
awesome. Yeah, I actually didn't remember seeing it before, but I like scrolled through pretty quickly, so
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. But one of the reasons was that I started it on GitHub because I didn't know where to start with documenting on Drupal.org. And the thing I had in mind was like, when I know where I can put all the stuff, I can put it on Drupal.org. Like the part of script I added to the Drupal documentation because I knew where that was.
Sure.
But some parts, yeah, I'm not sure, like, where should I put them or...
Yeah, that's totally fine. I think what we'd do is probably split this up into multiple pages, and we would just create pages for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like also there's been some talk on the Drupal.org issues on sort of like the documentation stuff as to I know someone in Amsterdam, I think Lomo, sort of restructured the pages a little bit. But we can, by all means, I think we can restructure again to whatever we think makes sense. Because like right now there's Twig in Drupal 8, which has like some kind of nesting, pretty deep nesting in there, which maybe is okay, but there's some kind of information that to me is a little bit buried that's fairly important for people getting started. So yeah, however we can kind of restructure that so that people new coming in can, like the number one thing that I would probably want someone new coming in to, whether they've used Drupal or not before, is to like, how do you turn on Twig debug?
Yeah, the developer documentation needs to be like, if not the first page, like a block on the first page going.
Yeah,
This will work when you try it. Go here.
Yeah. And like even like a screenshot or a code snippet or something showing, you know, here's what the Twig debug markup looks like, something like that.
Yep.
Would be cool.
I'd like to volunteer for assisting with documentation.
Awesome. We need all the help we can get.
So honestly, I think we can take this this guide that's on GitHub and then probably break out a table of contents from it and then just start making those pages.
So one thing that we need to look at in here that needs to be changed, I guess I could do like a pull request or something, but the style sheet stuff is in the info YAML section, and that needs to be moved to the library section. Style sheets no longer get added in the info YAML file. We had one blocker for that, and that got fixed. So.
But you still do the remove and stuff through the info? The style sheets override, style sheets remove?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's actually confusing if that does happen there. That should happen in libraries, right? Like,
I don't know.
Well, we should certainly also be testing all this stuff out.
yeah. Well, I don't know if we removed the ability to put in style sheets with the info YAML file. We should.
Yeah, that's also one of the reasons why I was not putting this on Drupal.org yet, because so many things were changing and Classy wasn't in. So I felt like I'm gonna put all this stuff on, and then yeah, it constantly has to change, and it's probably gonna be very outdated very soon.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's going to happen anyway.
yeah,
It's a minor thing, because that was a recent change. I just thought I'd mention
At
it.
least it being there, it's easier to get other people to just go in and change it. And I think, Scott, were you saying this? Like, get people who are themers to like review the documentation and make sure it makes sense.
Yeah, that's. If I didn't say that, I will claim that I said that.
We should do like a big user testing thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Just grab random non-Drupal people and go, all right, sit down and try to make a theme.
Yeah, using only this documentation.
And if we get it to all work, then that's awesome. And then you can laugh at the people who built the back-end documentation. Our stuff works.
Because yeah, like if anyone's going to a sprint and like someone like wants to help, I feel like that's an awesome task. Especially if you can get them to go and update parts that are not correct, like that would be amazing.
Yeah, and even just run into stumbling blocks, right? Like something might be correct, but someone tries to do it and it doesn't work. It's like, oh, right, because you didn't hit save correctly or something thing, and it's easier to clarify the documentation when you find those problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I found all the JS stuff as I was working on building that theme, like that it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people building their own themes. That's the only way we're going to suss this stuff out.
Yeah, that's why I kept saying the developer settings were so important. I was like, when I was testing stuff and trying to build custom themes to figure out the template inheritance and everything, and stuff wasn't working. I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, oh, I got to change all these settings around. And then they took the settings away for a week.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, there's an issue now to kind of discuss that. And it's sort of going back to an issue that I was following before about maybe having like almost like a dev or production flag or switch.
In the UI?
Or just like in settings PHP or a YAML file or something.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that issue somewhere. Joel has said that. It was like, just add this setting and it does everything.
Yeah.
That would help.
Because like the big thing is not only like Twig debug, so that your templates get reloaded, but also things like render caching. Because if you're working on like a node template or something, that's all cached. So unless you disable the render cache and you're trying to work on the node template, you have to clear cache every time. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think, Manuel, I think we need some people. We don't need a lot of people is sort of where I stand on that. Because there's always going to be sort of early adopter people who will say, I don't care if it's ready, and basically try and do it anyway. And if those people can find most of the bugs, like that's great. And I think in general, I think there's sort of enough people working around this stuff and poking at it that we will find most of the issues. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just sort of adapting to the new way of doing things in general. Because mostly you can do the same things, it's just the sort of APIs around them may have changed. So I think we should probably wrap this up. Any other thoughts or anything that anyone else wants to bring up or maybe talk about next time?
Can I ask you just a quick question about this style sheets thing, Scott?
Yeah, sure.
So it looks like the thing that was a blocker to moving the style sheets out of the info YAML file in Bartek, like that got fixed, but we didn't actually remove the ability to add style sheets in the info YAML file. So if the goal is to make that just like done with the libraries YAML file, is if we removed that from info YAML, the ability to do that, would that be a breaking change, API change at this point? Like, is that something we can do now that we're post-beta? It's not the end of the world if there's more than one way to do things, but
Yeah, I think they would argue that that's a breaking change without much benefit.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking that I think modules, like a module info YAML file, it can do the same thing.
well, yeah. I mean, the goal has been to get people to do that, like libraries YAML files, though, with
Yeah,
modules too. So it's
but like Yeah, but there was cases like this where it wasn't working, right?
Right, and but I don't think we did the follow-up to remove the ability to do it in info YAML. And I don't
Right.
even know about the style sheets override stuff, like if that even can be done in live YAML.
Because yeah, libraries you're usually almost declaring like an ID, right? So you would have like, my awesome cool jQuery library, and then you would kind of tell it where all the assets are and dependencies, right?
Yes.
So like for style sheets remove, it would almost be like a special case where it's like, no, I'm not adding a library. I want to, remove this other stuff. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Libraries started as like JavaScript has assets and we should declare them and stuff like that. And it
yeah,
moved to let's take over all the CSS JavaScript, and the mental model doesn't quite totally fit with everything. But I don't know.
yeah.
Well, this isn't strictly Twig, but we're kind of like the theme people for years about this stuff. So
Yeah, I know there was an argument in one issue, not an argument, but sort of a justification, if you will, that kind of making that all go through libraries YAML would be more consistent. But now that we're talking about style sheets removed, style sheets override, then it's like, well, it's not consistent there, so what are we really gaining?
yeah,
That's sort of my argument anyway, and I think I would agree with exactly what David said, where it is a breaking change and there's not a lot of benefit in removing that ability.
yeah.
So
Who would even be the person to know about this? Like,
Whether or not I can go in?
well, no, like just knows how the library stuff works and things. Would that be
right,
Nod and Wim maybe?
yeah,
Yeah.
I would, yeah, for sure. I'm trying to remember who actually kind of spearheaded that to go in.
No. Some of the stuff with themes is Sun, but
Yeah, it could have been Sun. Yeah, I don't think he's been around recently.
yeah.
Well, anyway, it doesn't sound like something to concentrate on. We could certainly just make it clear that the best practices are to do it in a certain way.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, or maybe it turns out that you only do CSS in a library if it depends on something. I don't know.
These are all things where we're going to have to try stuff out.
Yeah.
Quick, get some clients who want a Drupal 8 site.
Yeah. Go.
At some point, I'll think about moving my personal site to.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people doing that.
But it's like until there's like an actual upgrade path between versions, I don't have that kind of spare time.
Yeah, a little bit dicey.
Yeah, it's like my personal site doesn't really do anything.
Just about the library thing, I thought that like if you have a team, then you can do it in like so you can do it in the info file, right? But I thought that like libraries was more for like when you have a jQuery library and it has some CSS as well, that you then declare like, okay, this is the JavaScript for it, this is the CSS for it, and that is where you use the libraries for, and that when you have a CSS file, like
Yeah.
then you keep it in the info file where like info YML, because that is where it used to live. So is that not like?
I don't know. That sounds clear to me.
Sounds sensible to me, and I think, but there's also like, I think there's a libraries key, is there not, in info YAML now, where you can basically say this library should be loaded on every page, but then you could also use that like hash attached to only attach a library in certain cases, like only to a certain block or something. So there's different ways of using it either way, but Like to me, if it's you're building a theme and you have this CSS that you want to load on every page, then I don't see a problem in just putting that in info YAML, declaring that style sheet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have something that you like, you have a drop down, and for that drop down you have a specific CSS file, you add it to the library, and then you have to, like, then you can make sure that it's only loaded when that library is included.
Okay. I think just the theme documentation needs to like be clear on this, because I think when I looked at the theme documentation, I was like, put everything in libraries YAML. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but
Like the stuff on Drupal.org, or
I don't know. This is where somehow at some point when I was looking through.
okay, or maybe in a change record or something.
that's why I say we'll have to test all this stuff and be verbose in the documentation, come up with examples. We'll figure it all out.
Yeah, like in Amsterdam, I checked the JavaScript part with not to make sure that it was all correct. So he reviewed most of the example and he read it. So yeah.
Cool. Oh yeah, so I think maybe, I don't know if Mark, this is what you're thinking of, but one more link for the road, change record to remove scripts and add libraries key to theme info files.
Yeah.
Because I do remember that going in, but let's see. Color module doesn't look for CSS declared in the library.
Yeah, it's weird. It says it's talking about scripts, but the actual example is about CSS, which is really,
yeah, true, yeah.
right. Like it has nothing to do with scripts.
Right, okay. So, oh yeah, so the issue is integrate scripts/style sheets with libraries.
I don't know.
Yeah, these examples don't make sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense with the title of the change record. Yeah, like because there wasn't a lot of discussion on this issue, and it seems like most of what this issue is talking about is script dependencies, which absolutely makes sense.
Whoa, hello.
What happened?
I don't know. I couldn't hear. Your voice got very slow.
Slow.
That's just the way Scott talks.
Because yeah, it seems like this issue doesn't really touch the style sheets. So I think that example is double plus confusing.
So this is why I'm confused. This is what we're agreeing, right?
Yeah. Because basically what this issue is doing is taking out the ability to declare scripts in info YAML. So that's what the... So there's a task for someone who would like to update this change record so that it makes sense.
Wait, it's not but it's not removing the ability. It's just changing the key.
Right. Well, it's removing the ability to directly add a JS file in info YAML. Libraries YAML.
Just moving stuff around.
Yeah, so a better example might be 7, because 7 has a libraries YAML that actually does have some JS in it. It's actually all, well, sorry, it's all JS, and some of it is adding CSS along with that JS, which makes sense, and that's like what Sonder was saying too. So yeah, and 7 still has like a crap ton of style sheets. So to me, that's the better example. So does anyone want to volunteer to update that change record? To just use, basically just to use 7 libraries YAML and 7 info YAML, like parts of it.
All right, I just found an issue.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so the whole thing about like you were talking about modules, like
Yep.
scripts and style sheets. Apparently, there was an issue that removed the ability for modules to add scripts and style sheets.
Oh,
Their info YAML file.
but themes still can.
Well, this is why this is confusing, right? So,
It is confusing, yeah.
like, I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, well, I guess it sounds like themes. This is one part where modules and themes are different. Well, there's other parts too. Like, I would like this to change, but themes can't declare dependencies right now.
In their libraries file?
Sorry, I mean a theme can't declare that it's dependent on a module.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true.
And I feel like there's a lot of like real world use cases that I've run into where it would make it a lot less fragile if you could say, you know, I depend on whatever this
Yeah,
module or whatever.
do that because people do things say like their theme depends on the color module or something.
Yeah.
In a way.
There is an issue for that, but I'm not sure what our odds are of getting that in for 8.0.x unless it gets a champion. Because it's quite an old issue too. I'll see if I can find that. Oh, yeah. That was actually really easy to find.
All right, I looked through this issue on integrate script style sheets from info layout files with libraries, and Nod specifically says that you should leave the ability to have style sheets declared in a theme's info YAML file.
Okay, perfect.
One without any dependencies.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. All right.
So yeah, the issue for dependencies for themes, May 2009. So.
Yeah, I was like, that's a 5-year-old issue.
So good stuff. All right, well, I gotta go. So we gotta wrap this up. So we'll talk to. Thanks everyone for coming. Awesome turnout. I'm really glad to see this because it was kind of an experiment. So thanks everyone for coming. We'll have the call at this time slot in 4 weeks, or if you want to stay up really late, you can come talk to us again in 2 weeks. So either way, we'll see you in the issue queues. We're on #Drupal-Twig in IRC if you want to jump in there and harass us. Otherwise, later, Twig people.
Yo.
Yeah.
You guys.
Talk to everybody later.
Have a good Twig day.
Yeah, you too.
You.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.